I couldn't believe my eyes. The messages on Emily's cell phone were the proof I was so afraid to find. There, on the screen, were the exchanges between her and Mark, a coworker who I had always considered harmless. The words were clear, filled with a desire that could only mean one thing: betrayal. My heart sank, and a feeling of emptiness came over me. How could she do this? Weren't we happy? Or was it all just a facade? I sat there, Emily's phone in my hands, trying to absorb the impact of the discovery. Each message read was like a stab in my chest. I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight, and last night was amazing. I can't wait for the next one, were just some of the phrases that echoed in my mind. I felt betrayed, deceived, like our entire marriage was a lie. The sound of the door opening brought me back to reality. Emily entered the room, beaming, with a smile that made me feel even more betrayed. She had no idea what I had discovered. "Hey, love," she said, excitedly. "How was your day?" I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "It was normal," I replied, trying to hide the storm of emotions that consumed me. "And you?" "It was amazing," she replied, throwing her bag on the couch and sitting next to me. "I had a busy day at work, but then I went out with some friends for a drink. It was great to relax a bit." I knew she was lying. "Really? You went out with your friends?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes, it was really fun," she replied, not noticing my suspicion. "Interesting," I said, getting up from the couch, "because I saw some messages on your cell phone that tell a different story." Emily's smile instantly disappeared. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, trying to sound carefree, but the nervousness was evident in her voice. "I saw your messages with Mark," I said, looking straight into his eyes. "I know about your case." She turned pale, unable to respond for a moment. "Adam, I can explain." "Explain what, Emily? That you're cheating on me with a coworker? That our marriage means nothing to you?" My voice started to get louder, filled with anger and pain. "It's not like that, Adam. I made a mistake. It was just once, and I regretted it immediately." She started to cry, but her tears didn't move me. "Don't lie to me, Emily. The messages say otherwise. How long have you been with him? Months? Years?" I could no longer hide my anger. "Please, Adam, listen to me. I never meant to hurt you."
I'm truly sorry.
She tried to get closer, but I backed away. "It's too late for apologies, Emily. I can't trust you anymore. Our marriage is over." The words came out with a firmness I didn't know I possessed. "No, please don't say that. We can fix things. We can try again. I'll do anything." She was desperate, but I knew there was no going back. "I've already made my decision. I want a divorce," I said, turning to leave the room. Emily's tears continued to fall, but I couldn't bear to stand there any longer. As I walked up the stairs to our room, I began to think about what would come next. My life was about to change drastically, and I needed to be prepared to face the consequences of this betrayal. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. There would be no more room for lies and deceit. When I walked into the cafe that cold November morning, my heart was heavy with the weight of Emily's betrayal. I was still processing the pain of discovering that my wife, the woman I had shared so many moments with, was having an affair with Mark, a coworker. My thoughts were in turmoil when, as I looked up at the counter, I saw a familiar figure. Sarah, an old friend of Emily's who she had always despised for reasons that were never clear to me. Sarah noticed me and waved with a shy smile. Feeling a little lighter at seeing a familiar face, I walked over to her. "Adam, long time. Is everything okay?" she asked, clearly noticing the shadow of sadness in my eyes. I hesitated for a moment, considering how to respond. Finally, I decided to be honest. "Not really, Sarah. I found out that Emily was cheating on me." His eyes widened with surprise and compassion.
Have, Adam.
"I'm sorry. Want to talk about this?" I nodded and we sat at a table near the window, where the morning sun cast a soft glow through the glass. As the conversation flowed, I told her about the messages I had found on Emily's cell phone and how I had confronted her the night before. Sarah listened intently, offering words of comfort and understanding. "You don't deserve this, Adam. No one deserves to be treated this way." That brief exchange of words and the human warmth that emanated from Sarah gave me the strength to move forward. That's when she suggested, "Have you ever thought about starting the divorce process? It might be painful, but it might be best for you." The idea of divorce was something I was avoiding, but at that moment, I realized it was the only way out. "I think you're right, Sarah. I can't keep living like this." She nodded, and I could see a gleam of determination in her eyes. "If you need help, I'll be here. I know it might be hard, but you're strong, Adam." In the days that followed, Sarah was a pillar of support. Every step of the way through the divorce process, she was there, offering encouraging words and a sincere friendship that I didn't expect to find. Emily, on the other hand, was desperate to make things right. She called constantly, sent messages asking for forgiveness, and even showed up at my apartment door on several occasions. "Adam, please listen to me. It was a mistake. I still love you." But to me, her words sounded empty. The trust had been broken, and there was no going back. As Emily desperately tried to fix the irreparable, Sarah and I grew closer and closer. Our conversations became deeper, and I began to see her not just as a friend, but as a companion who understood my pains and joys. One night, as we were walking through Central Park, the inevitable happened. We stopped near an illuminated fountain and, without saying a word, our eyes met. The closeness, complicity, and affection that grew between us culminated in a passionate kiss. It was as if the world around us disappeared, and all that existed was that moment between us. That kiss marked the beginning of something new and unexpected. I knew Emily wouldn't accept this easily, especially considering her contempt for Sarah. But in that moment, all that mattered was that I was finally finding a path to happiness again. And that path, surprisingly, was on Sarah's side. I was sitting in the living room, with a cup of coffee cooling in my hands, when I received Sarah's message. She was looking forward to meeting that evening to discuss our plans for the future. I felt a wave of relief when I read his words. "After everything we'd been through, your presence was a balm for my wounded soul." But before I could respond, I heard the front door open. Emily was back. She walked in, her face red and her eyes shining with anger. "Adam, what is this I hear about you and Sarah?" she began, without even giving me time to say hello. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Emily, that's none of your business. We're divorced, remember?" "What do you mean, it's none of my business? Sarah was my friend. This is betrayal, Adam. How could you do this to me?" She was shaking with anger, and I could see tears starting to form in the corners of her eyes. "Cheating? You talk about cheating like you're an expert, Emily," I replied, my voice thick with sarcasm. "Did you forget about Mark so quickly? The messages, the secret meetings? This is all your fault, not mine." She took a step back, as if my words had hit her physically. I made a mistake, Adam, but that doesn't justify what you're doing now." "A mistake? You call months of lies and betrayal a mistake?" "Emily, I tried to save our marriage. I tried everything. But you chose Mark. Now, I chose Sarah. It's that simple." She was silent for a moment, processing my words. "I still love you, Adam," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I know I messed up, but I want to make it right. Please give me another chance." I shook my head, sadness mixing with anger. "Emily, it's too late for that. I'm moving on with my life, and you should do the same." She opened her mouth to respond, but the sound of her cell phone interrupted her. She looked at the screen and her face contorted in frustration. "Mark wants me to move in with him," she said, more to herself than to me. "Really? And what are you going to do?" I asked, unable to hide the disdain in my voice. "I don't know," she admitted, looking more lost than ever. "I thought I wanted to be with him, but now I'm not sure about anything." "Well, that's something you need to work out on your own, Emily," I said, getting up from the couch. "I have my own life to take care of now." She looked at me, her eyes full of pain and regret.
I'm sorry, Adam.
"I really am." "I know," I replied softly, "but that doesn't change anything." After she left, I sat back on the couch, feeling exhausted. Minutes later, my cell phone vibrated again. It was Sarah. "Still up for later?" the message said. I smiled, feeling a rush of warmth and comfort. Of course, I replied. Cannot wait. As I prepared for our meeting, I found myself thinking about the future. Sarah and I were starting to plan our lives together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. But he knew Emily wouldn't give up easily. She was angry and hurt, and although I wished she could move on, something told me she had other plans. When I arrived at the restaurant where Sarah and I had agreed to meet, she was already there, waiting for me with a warm smile. Hi, Adam, she said, standing up to greet me.
I, Sara, I Raplia, Ugingakera.
How are you? Better now that you're here, she said, holding my hand. Shall we talk about our future? Of course, I replied, feeling a rush of happiness. Let's plan an amazing future together. As we discussed our plans, I couldn't help but think about Emily and what she might be up to. But in that moment, all that mattered was Sarah and the future we were building together. And that was enough to make me smile. I was sitting in my apartment, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that enveloped me. Since discovering Emily's betrayal, my life had taken an unexpected turn. And now, dating Emily's former friend Sarah, things seemed even more complicated. I knew Emily wasn't going to let this happen cheaply, but I didn't imagine how far she could go. It was on a cold Tuesday night that things started to go wrong for good. I received a message from Sarah, visibly upset. Adam, we need to talk. Something very serious is happening. We met at the cafe where it all started. She was pale, her eyes full of worry. What there was? I asked, sitting down in front of him. They're spreading rumors about me at work, she said, her voice shaking. Someone is saying I'm having an affair with the boss to get promotions. This is destroying my reputation. I knew it had to do with Emily. It was the kind of thing she would do, and I was sure Mark was involved too. That was a low blow, even for them. Do you think it was Emily? I asked, already knowing the answer. I'm sure, Sarah replied, firmly. I know her well enough to know what she's capable of. We decided it was time to confront Emily. Sarah was nervous but determined. We went to her apartment, and Sarah knocked loudly on the door. Emily opened it, surprised to see us together. What do you want? She asked, crossing her arms. I know what you're doing, Emily, Sarah began, bluntly. You're spreading rumors about me at work to try to end my relationship with Adam. This is pathetic. Emily gave a sarcastic smile, clearly enjoying the situation. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, with false innocence. Maybe people are just seeing you for who you really are. The tension was palpable. I could feel the anger emanating from Sarah, and I knew I needed to intervene before it got out of control. Emily, I know you're behind this, and I know Mark is helping you, I said, trying to stay calm. This needs to stop. Now. Emily laughed, a cold, humorless sound. And what are you going to do, Adam? Threaten me? Good luck with that. You have no proof of anything. Sarah took a step forward, her eyes flashing with anger. I already spoke to HR. They are investigating. If they find any connection between you and these rumors, you will pay for it. Emily lost some of her composure, but soon regained control. Do whatever you want. I have nothing to hide, she said, before closing the door in our faces. We left there with a mixed feeling of relief and frustration. We knew Emily and Mark wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted, but at least now we had taken action. That night, as Sarah slept next to me, I lay awake, thinking about how it had all come to this. I loved Sarah and wanted to protect our relationship, but I knew Emily was willing to go to extreme lengths. The next day, I went to Sarah's work to try to talk to her boss. I needed to understand how far the rumors had spread and what measures were being taken. Her boss, Mr. Thompson, greeted me with a worried look. Adam, it's a complicated situation, he said, sighing. We are investigating, but these rumors have already caused a lot of damage to Sarah's reputation. You believe her, don't you? I asked, anxiously. I've known Sarah for years. I know she is an exemplary professional, but rumors like these are difficult to erase completely. I left there with a weight on my chest. I knew I needed to find a way to resolve this before it was too late. Emily had crossed a line, and I couldn't let her destroy Sarah's life for revenge. While walking through the busy streets of New York, my phone rang. It was Mark. We need to talk, he said, his voice carrying a threatening tone. I agreed to meet him at a nearby bar. When I arrived, he was already there, with a drink in his hand and an ironic smile on his face. "What do you want, Mark?" I asked, sitting down in front of him. "I just wanted to let you know that this is just the beginning. Emily and I won't stop until we're done with you and Sarah." I glared at him, feeling anger rising inside me. "You're playing with fire, Mark. This will end badly for you." He laughed, a bitter sound. "We'll see, Adam. We will see." I left the bar determined that I needed to find a way to protect Sarah and expose Emily and Mark for who they really were. I wasn't going to let them win. Not this time. That morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, reviewing for the 1000th time the evidence I had collected against Emily and Mark. Photos, text messages, emails. It was a well-documented arsenal of betrayal and conspiracy. With each look, my heart sank, but it also strengthened in the decision to confront them. I could no longer allow Sarah to suffer because of Emily's machinations. I knew Emily would be home from work around 6 in the afternoon. As soon as I heard the key turn in the door, I felt a rush of adrenaline course through my body. I got up from the chair and went to meet him. She walked in, surprised to see me there, standing in the living room with a firm face. "Adam, what are you doing here?" he asked, trying to hide the surprise and irritation in his voice. I held up the envelope with the proofs and threw it on the coffee table. "We need to talk, Emily. And this time, you won't come out unscathed," I declared, feeling the anger contained in every word. She looked at the envelope with disdain before opening it. As he flipped through the photos and read the messages, his face turned pale. He tried to maintain his composure, but his eyes betrayed concern. "What is this, Adam? Are you spying on me now?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Don't play the victim, Emily. I know everything. I know you and Mark are plotting against Sarah. I have enough evidence to take you both to court for defamation and harassment." My voice was firm and unwavering. She took a step forward, her eyes pleading. "Adam, please listen to me. I still love you. It was all a mistake, a big mistake. I was confused, and Mark, he manipulated me." Tears began to stream down his face. I shook my head, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. "Don't give me that, Emily. You made your choice when you decided to betray me, and then when you decided to sabotage Sarah's life. I will no longer fall for your lies." She tried to get closer, reaching out to touch my arm, but I backed away. "Adam, please forgive me. Let's solve this together. I can fix everything." His voice was a desperate whisper. "There are no more us, Emily. You crossed the line. Now, you and Mark will pay for your actions." I walked away, indicating that the conversation was over. Emily fell to her knees, sobbing, but I couldn't allow myself to be shaken by her tears. I left the house, feeling a strange sense of relief and heaviness at the same time. It was as if a painful chapter in my life was finally closing. The next day I met with Sarah to tell her everything. She was sitting in the cafe where we met, her eyes full of concern. "Adam, what happened?" he asked as soon as I sat down next to him. I explained everything, every detail, every piece of evidence I had found. His expression ranged from surprise to relief to determination. "We need to take this to justice, Adam. They can't get away with it," she said, holding my hand firmly. "I know, and we'll do it together," I replied, feeling a new wave of courage. That night, as we prepared for what was to come, I realized how much Sarah meant to me. She was my support, my strength, and together, we would face any obstacle. Emily and Mark had crossed lines that could not be ignored. And now, it was time for them to face the consequences of their actions, while Sarah and I began to build a future together, free from the shadows of the past. The courtroom was packed that morning, with all eyes on the big trial. I was sitting next to Sarah, holding her hand tightly, while Emily was on the other side, with an expression that mixed fear and regret. Mark, in turn, seemed calm, almost indifferent, as if he were about to watch a show that he already knew the ending of. The judge entered the room, and everyone stood up. When he sat down, the session began. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel the sweat running down my back. The prosecuting attorney was the first to speak, presenting the evidence I had collected against Emily and Mark. As the evidence was shown, Emily's face became increasingly pale. She seemed to finally realize the gravity of her actions. Then, it was the defense's turn. Mark's lawyer began to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, a conspiracy to frame him. But then, the moment that would change everything arrived. A surprise witness was called to the stand, an old co-worker of Mark's who revealed a shocking secret. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," began the witness, "I am here to reveal something that could change the course of this trial. Mark has always had a personal grudge against Adam. They were friends at college, but after a bitter fight for a promotion, Mark vowed revenge." I looked at Sarah, perplexed. I had no idea that Mark had carried this resentment for so many years. Emily, in turn, was astonished. She looked at Mark, seeking some confirmation, but he remained impassive. "Mark used Emily in his revenge plan," the witness continued. "He knew Adam still had feelings for her and manipulated the situation so that she would cheat on Adam, all to destroy him emotionally." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Emily, now in tears, stood up abruptly. "That is true?" she shouted at Mark. "Have you been using me this whole time?" Mark finally looked at her but didn't say anything. His cold, indifferent expression was the confirmation Emily needed. She turned to the judge, her voice shaky but determined. "I was manipulated. I made terrible mistakes, but I didn't know I was being used. I am willing to cooperate with justice and tell everything I know." The judge nodded and the session was temporarily suspended so that further deliberations could take place. During the break, Emily approached Sarah and me. His eyes were red from crying. "Adam, I know I can't undo what I did," she began, her voice breaking. "But I really loved you. I was lost and I let myself be carried away. I never imagined that all of this would affect you in such a cruel way." I sighed, feeling a mix of anger and pity. Sarah squeezed my hand, giving me strength. "Emily," I said, trying to stay calm, "what you did was unforgivable, but I believe you now understand the consequences of your actions. I hope you can rebuild your life in a better way." She nodded, still in tears, and walked away. The session resumed, and with Emily's testimony against Mark, he was convicted of defamation and harassment. Emily, in turn, received a lighter sentence for collaborating with the law, but she would still have to face the repercussions for her actions. With the trial concluded, Sarah and I felt a huge weight lifted from our shoulders. We decided it was time to move on. Not long after, we were married in an intimate ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who had supported us throughout this tumultuous journey. As we exchanged our vows, I looked into Sarah's eyes and knew that, despite everything, we had finally found the happiness we had longed for. Emily, on the other hand, was left to reflect on her choices and try to rebuild her life. Life had taken unexpected turns, but in the end, love and truth prevailed.